knowing full well and understanding full well now, obviously not at the time, but now that that person was actually incapable simply because of their own trauma, their own situation, from their past as well. And so often we can find ourselves attracting or being in those situations a mirror and a match for what we're willing to tolerate and what we're allowing ourselves to be treated, and that can become a very addictive cycle within itself as well. So understanding those pieces was huge. And
welcome everyone to another wonderful day, to another wonderful podcast with another beautiful lady. And again, Clueless Eli kicks in again because I do not have a clue what she does, how she does it, what her backstory is, but that's why we always have a beautiful conversation. Welcome, Sally. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Eli. It's so great to be here with you today.
I'm glad to have you on here, and we are glad to have you on here. And with that said, please tell us what you do to help your customers be successful within your thriving business, and then we'll go with the flow.
Sounds fantastic. So I'm a kinesiologist as well as an intuitive holistic Thrive coach. So helping people really transform their mindset, work on their belief systems, and really understand a lot more around their emotional regulation as well. It's a huge part of being part of my own personal journey with really big emotions and lots of sensitivity and things like that. And really supporting women in particular if they're feeling exhausted, burnt out, to know what to do to come back on track physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. So really connecting back into themselves.
Wow, that sounds amazing, because burnout can be quite detrimental. I've been in a situation where I've almost burnt out. I knew it was happening, so I knew what to do before I got there. But I've seen other people and it's taken them 6 months, a year, 2 years to recover. It takes a very, very long time. So what made you choose burnout in particular as your focus? While you do support people around other themes, but your focus is burnout. So what made you do that?
Significantly went through burnout myself in 2020, but I had gone through two other periods in my time in my life as well where I'd been through burnout, but definitely nowhere near as bad as this particular one. And it really made me realize, number one, how prevalent it actually is for so many people. Obviously, my focus is women, but I've certainly worked with men that have gone through burnout as well. And I think particularly in these current times and with the uncertainty that's been in the world over the last 4 years, I think there's absolutely a higher precedence right now of people that are experiencing burnout as well. And it was such a stark reminder of how awful it felt and how much of a struggle it was mentally, even with all the tools and years of training and everything that I'd done. It really hit home how much it really impacts our mental well-being as well when we go through that. So I really wanted to ensure that people had the tools. I knew exactly, as you mentioned, I knew exactly what I needed to do to bring myself out of that. But being able to share that with others, because I've had so many women come to me over the years. I know I'm not right, but I don't know what's going on with me. And when we dig deep, generally it's because they've been in burnout or going through burnout.
Okay, so let's talk about this burnout. So what does burnout really mean, and what does it look like?
So burnout essentially is adrenal fatigue, or can be called chronic fatigue as well if it is over an extended period of time. But basically it's the body being in a state of fight or flight for such a long period of time that eventually there's chronic inflammation that's happening within the body, both within the brain as well as within the nervous system. There's a lot of nervous system dysregulation for a long period of time, and generally it's been a chronic stress or multiple chronic stresses over an extended period of time, and then followed up. So the nervous system loses capacity over that time period. And as we lose capacity, we become more and more dysregulated, which impacts our sleep, our well-being, all of those different factors. And as that happens, we become less and less able to cope with stresses, become less resilient, meaning that more and more things start to overwhelm us over that period of time. And then certainly in my situation, I had 3 acute stresses, meaning it was very high, intense, emotional things that happened within the week, and it just blew up my nervous system basically after being in chronic stress for a long period of time as well. So so the symptoms of that generally, insomnia can absolutely be a symptom, loss of focus, loss of cognitive function, inability to actually get things done. I have so many women say, I just need to be more motivated, and it's like, no, you actually need to rest. And procrastination, not getting things done, mind wandering, intrusive thoughts, really, really loud inner critic, craving carbohydrates, high fat, high sugar foods because the body's desperate to try and get some energy in. There's so many different symptoms and factors that play out.
Yeah, there is. There's so much going on with the body when it goes through this stress factor. And I never knew there was so much going on. I knew it affects the mind and physical and etc. But you've gone into detail, and I was like, yeah, the body really goes into shutdown, doesn't it? In so many different ways.
It does. Yeah. It goes literally from that state of hypervigilance or, always switched on, racing mind, can't shut down, to just simply so much overwhelm that the body goes into dorsal-vagal shutdown, so the freeze response, which as a way of trying to conserve energy, so it lowers the metabolic rate, all of those different factors. And often I've described it to people like walking through a boggy marsh with concrete boots on, because that's how it feels like when we're in the height of burnout and trying to function, and just everyday things that used to be easy suddenly become very, very, very difficult. Yeah.
So when you were in the stage of burning out yourself, and you said am I right, 3 times it happened to you in your life? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Which was the worst time? Why were you in a position of burning out? And what did you do about it to get you out of the biggest hole you've ever been, or one of the biggest holes you've ever been in?
Yeah, the worst time was definitely the last time, and I think this is also like really important for people to be aware of, because if you've been in burnout before, there's a huge predisposition, and every time we go through burnout, and particularly if we haven't got the space or the time or the ability to be able to fully rest and fully recover, we're starting off with a lower reserve to begin with, if that makes sense. So the last time was absolutely most significant. I was to the point where I could barely function for more than 2 hours a day. I'd been a single mum for 12 years. I'd been a solopreneur for 14, or actually at that particular time for 10 years as well. So there was a lot of chronic ongoing stress there, just in managing and juggling all the things. And whilst I was applying all my tools, it's still a stretch. And I had very high standards on myself as well, so constantly pushing. I was training for a body physique competition as well, so I was training very, very hard at the gym.
Were you?
And so I was doing generally 2-hour workouts 4 times a week. And on top of that, I decided to throw in a walking marathon. I'd injured my knee years ago. I'd always wanted to do a marathon. So I thought, right, I'll do a walking marathon as well. So I was training 5 to 6 hours of extended walking and things like that over the weekend on top of the gym training. I was then also really trying to scale and build my business in a really big way. So I had been working with a US company, which had me getting up at 2 a.m. to do support calls. Had a lot going on personally and in one of my relationships as well, which was extending me. And then in the 1 week, my daughter moved out of home, and we have a great relationship. There was no problems there. It was just starting to move into empty nest, as well as I had a dear friend pass away from cancer, and my partner and I had our relationship had broken down that same week as well. And so compounded on all of the top of the chronic stress for being a single mum for that period of time, as well as and having no backstop, for my business, having no one else to step in, no sick leave, no, there was none of that. And I was still financially responsible for my girls at that particular time as well. So there was a lot that I had to navigate in that. So the main tools that I used, I actually wrote about in my book called Thrive, which is literally just behind me as well. But a lot of the tools that I applied was the main part for me personally was really being able to, number one, process the really big emotions, because I think the grief, the momentous grief that I was feeling definitely put me straight into that freeze and that dorsal shutdown, as well as being able to process the emotions and doing it in a way that wasn't creating further overwhelm in the system was really important. And the other part was working on the thoughts that my inner critic was telling me at that particular time. And I knew it wasn't real. I knew it wasn't true. But you can know that logically and still have the emotional impact from the beliefs and the thoughts that are kind of coming in at that particular time, simply because my emotional state was so low. So that was a huge part. Reducing inflammation in the body, having the support through magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin B, zinc, all of those things were really critical. And I did work with a naturopath, which I think is really, really important, or a nutritionist, to really identify what were the key things that my body was missing. And then also just coming back to my own heart of, like what do I actually need to do for myself? What am I desiring? What am I wanting? And what's important for me? And sometimes that can be really hard, particularly when we're in the lower stages or feeling very low emotionally and physically, because the loss of clarity is there. So it was just constant brain fog, when normally I'd sit up and I'd plan out my day, and I would just sit there like a stunned fish
But you were being pulled all over the place at that one point in your life. The cancer, was that the first time you got cancer too?
No, I didn't go through cancer. My friend passed away from cancer. So no, I hadn't gone through cancer, but I did have my mum. She passed away from cancer in 2010, but that was a different situation to this particular time.
So with the breakdown with your relationship with your husband, and then you had the situation with your child leaving home, plus you was well overworking yourself, and you're super fit on the weekends. During the week you're still pumping iron, and you still have all those things on top of you with the business. So many other things going at the same time, and this was over. It got quite difficult at a particular point, but this had been piling on, let's say, for instance, for quite some time, and something had to give, right? And unfortunately, it was burnout. So with burnout taken, you had nobody else to help you with the business, and you need to recover. Now, most people would take the time off work because they would have PAYE, which they call it in England, where you pay as you go. You have an employer, and then you take time off, and you can get paid on sick leave. But you didn't have that. You didn't have the backup. You didn't have the husband to help out in a certain way. So how were you able to recover without having the flexibility to actually just chill out for a few weeks, a few months? How did you manage that one?
It definitely meant a longer recovery time, for sure. I'm absolutely certain of that, compared to other people that I've worked with that literally have been able to just take that time off and really relax. I applied all of the tools that I just literally had mentioned, and it was really about just stripping everything back. I obviously stopped immediately, doing the physical training immediately. So that was one of the big factors, because I was doing a lot of heavy compound lifts, which really blows out the nervous system a lot as well. So it just went back to, I think within a month, I started just using 5 kilo dumbbells, and it was actually only earlier this year that I actually went back to starting to lift really heavy again. So and that was 2020. So I literally I've done like a lot of physical things in between that time, but in terms of like the really heavy lifting again, it's literally taken me until earlier this year to feel like really confident that I've got this again. So that was really interesting, but it was really just about letting go of anything that wasn't an absolute necessity. I didn't have any reserves left for catching up with friends, for socializing, and that is generally also another huge sign of burnout as well, is just the wanting to withdraw, not wanting to socialize, not wanting to connect with people. Yet it's one of the biggest factors that can really support with regulation of the nervous system as well. But I just did not have capacity for it. So I would literally rest in between all of my client calls, and then I'd jump up to a client call and then lay down and rest again immediately. Sleep was absolutely critical to me, just really ensuring I was getting rest, getting sleep. And the biggest factor, I think, is really managing, again, the mind and being able to process the emotions, because whilst ever we aren't processing the emotions, that's blocked energy within the nervous system. But it's also the nervous system still caught in this fight-flight response, and then dropping into that dorsal vagal shutdown. So the more we can process the emotions, it allows the body to come back into parasympathetic, which is where we have a much greater chance at rejuvenation, rest, recovery. The body can digest properly, reduce the inflammation, and get back on that path to wellness. So big factors there.
You did a lot to get back. Now, was that the worst time in your life, the most traumatic time within your life, or was there anything else that you've had to recover from?
No, I would say 2010 was probably the hardest. Between 2008 and 2010 was actually probably the most traumatic. And it wasn't to say that like what I went through in 2020 wasn't tough, because it was very, very difficult. But I think that the biggest difference was I actually had the tools and the strategies, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. Whereas when I went through a really difficult circumstance, so I'd been in a very unhealthy relationship for 14 years, and my marriage had broken down in 2008, and shortly after that was when I first became a single mum, and then shortly after that my mum had passed away from cancer. So it was, and that was really what kickstarted me on my personal development journey to discover like what it was about thinking and all of these different factors that really made such a difference as well. So my body had been hypervigilant for 14 years of being in that relationship and not feeling safe for a long period of time as well. So there was lots of things there that I really needed to unpack, but then also just being thrust into that position of becoming financially independent and needing to be a single mum to my girls for a lot of years. So,
and that I can imagine. No, I can't, because I don't know your story. That's a lie. With what you've said, with 14 years of difficulty, as you said, there's a lot in your marriage that was really difficult, and 14 years is a long time to go through a constant barrage of negativity over and over again. It takes time to then undo that, to get yourself in a safe place, then to undo it, then to believe that you're another person, because then you become somebody else, right? You became somebody else.
A shift in identity.
And you didn't recognize yourself. But then it's difficult to get out of the hole. How do you get back home? How do you get back to you? And that's a really difficult stage, especially when you've gone through a form of, how can I say, like you've been brainwashed. All right, over and over again, and then it takes time coming out of that. Can I just give us some basics of what happened within the marriage so we can appreciate how difficult it was for you to come out of the hole?
Yeah, for sure. So there was a lot of alcoholism on the weekends and things like that. And that was when it would become very verbally abusive at particular times during those stages as well. And it didn't seem to matter what I did. It was never right. It was never enough from those sorts of things. So I went into lots of coping mechanisms myself as well, in terms of trying to be more perfect in some way, shape or form within myself. So it was always, having the house absolutely perfect. I literally, it's crazy now when I think about it, of just how much I was attempting to try and get some form of external control, because I felt so out of control internally within that situation, but very much codependent, very addicted to needing other people's love, validation and approval. And of course that was never forthcoming, because it was a perfect reflection, painful, absolutely, but a perfect reflection of actually how I felt about me at the time as well. So all of those things, I've really done a lot of inner work around to really understand what it was that I was trying to get from this person, and knowing full well and understanding full well now, obviously not at the time, but now that person was actually incapable simply because of their own trauma, their own situation from their past as well. And so often we can find ourselves attracting or being in those situations. I don't like to use the word attracting, but they do become a mirror and a match for what we're willing to tolerate and what we're allowing ourselves to be treated, and that can become a very addictive cycle within itself as well. So understanding those pieces was huge. And I think I'd been dabbling in self-development since I was 17. I met this person when I was 16. We were together from 16 to 30, 31. So that was a very long period of time. And just lots of verbal abuse, lots of unsafety within the relationship, no emotional attunement, no understanding of needs. Everything was fine so long as it was all going in the direction that they wanted it to be.
And at 16 years old, this is where things really change for you, where you become more personable, where you start to develop as your own identity. But I suppose you didn't have a chance to develop that, or was it a situation you did, but the relationship just took a turn many years later? Or did it
no, it was right from the get-go.
It was a problem.
No, it's even before we were engaged and things like that, there was all of the red flags, all of the behaviors. But I think at that particular point, and one of the beliefs that I held about myself was that I was fat and ugly and nobody would love me, and he loved me or appeared to love me. So, that was, there was no alignment of values or anything like that. It's very interesting. One of my daughters literally shared with me the other day that she had said, somebody had said to her, are you sad that your parents, aren't together? And she was just like, oh my God, have you met my parents? She's like, no, that would be a disaster. She said that completely, polar opposites in values and how we choose to live our life and all those things. So which was also, a relief, I guess, for me to hear that many, many years on. But just being able to come back to myself, and I literally just gave myself 12 months of recovery time, of discovering me, of finding out who I was again, because I really did lose myself a lot within that relationship by becoming everything that I thought that I needed to be in order to be loved and accepted. And I think we all do that to some degree as part of our socialization, of part of fitting into our birth families, all of those factors. And so really coming back to my most authentic self and giving myself the space and the time and the grace to explore and experiment and play and try new things to figure out what did I like, what didn't I like, to discover who I was again and really build on that. So it was a really beautiful beautiful journey for me in doing that, and it's an ongoing journey as well, because what used to work or what we used to love, sometimes those things change over periods of time as well.
Yeah, and I would suggest that you was doubly trying to find out who you were, because when you're 16, you're going through that stage of trying to find out who you were, and you didn't have that chance. So not only are you trying to find the new you because you're much older, but you're also trying to find the 16-year-old who was about to turn 18, who was about to turn 20, 21. So you had a huge amount of discovery to go through.
Totally.
Yeah. Is that how you felt?
Oh, absolutely. Like it really felt overwhelming at the time. I remember a very distinct line in the sand moment of my girls were 6 and 8 years old at the time when all of that was happening. And I remember I was laying on the bed and I was so grief-stricken and so furious, like angry at myself that I was in this position in life. I really felt like a victim to everything that had happened, and just really going, this is not going to be how it ends. This is not going to be what it's like for my girls growing up. And it was very much I think that having that deeper reason why and that deeper purpose to change my life was a really important part, because at the time I didn't love or like myself enough to want to make those changes even for myself, or to have the energy to do it for myself, but I absolutely did for my girls. So I think that was a distinct part, and then having that time also, because my girls had previously been with me 24/7, and now I was looking at facing, time apart from them and all sorts of things when they were visiting their dad. And that also gave me time and space, I guess, to figure out who I was away from the role of being a mum as well, because I think that can also happen from that perspective, where again then we become, we move from one person to the other and then just become everything that we think they want or need us to be, instead of really being true. And I really wanted to role model that authenticity and to come back to, I'd always believed in following my own heart and my own intuition, and the more I felt safe within my body, the more I could actually really start to tap into that inner wisdom, and then also help my girls tap into their wisdom and what was right for them and what did they want, and all of that was really important.
So you were fearful that your girls would basically choose a similar relationship that you had chosen, and you obviously thought, no, there's no way. No, I've done this. That's my mistake, but I don't want this to be the example of how a relationship should be.
100%, absolutely.
And I take it you had that conversation with them. So after you made the move and made sure that you were split, husband and wife, did you have that conversation with them about relationships, anything like that, or it was just a foregone conclusion after then? What did you do to try to show them that this wasn't quite right?
I think obviously age dependent. That's been an ongoing conversation over the years, and my girls I'm now a grandmother now as well, so my youngest has a beautiful little boy and another one on the way, so that's very exciting. But it's been an ongoing conversation and age appropriate conversations in broadening that understanding and broadening how to really come back to discovering what is right for ourselves, of following our intuition, of speaking up for ourselves, of setting clear boundaries, of having ample self-love on board, of knowing that whatever we're tolerating, we're accepting, and we're saying yes to in our life as well. So it's definitely been an ongoing conversation and a way of, I guess, deepening their own understanding of what's right for them as well. And again, as parents, we can absolutely want the best for our kids, but just like me, we're all on our own journey. And often with these patterns, there's been so much generational trauma or generational patterning that comes down that it can take many generations to actually heal that. But with seeing where my girls are at now at 22 and 23, they're light years away from where I was at that particular age, and I think that that's a really positive a positive sign that they're heading in the right direction. And my philosophy as a parent has always been understanding that they are self-responsible. They're responsible for what they're creating in their life, what they're experiencing in their life, and that self-love is the most important factor for what permeates through our life, be it in relationships, finance, business, career, all of those different factors, our health, our well-being. That self-love has to be the foundation first and foremost. So,
that's great, because there's a lot of issues when it comes to families and generational, should I say. It goes from generation to generation. Yeah. But you seem to have stopped it and nipped it in the bud. Why do you think that is? Is that due to communication, and from your point of view, saying it in a particular way so they understand this isn't normal? Or was it something else that a lot of parents would be interested in this, because there's a lot of parents out there that have gone through what you've gone through, maybe worse, maybe less, but they see how it's certain bad habits have gone into the kids. So that'd be interesting to find out, well, how did you do that? How did you nip that and stop that reaction going from one to the other very quickly? How did you do that?
So I think it's understand, and I think there's a lot of people in this situation where they've decided to be the cycle breaker, like within their family as well. And it's not that I grew up in a violent home or anything else. It's more the codependent patterns that were passed down of needing to people please, needing to go into that fawn response, or having that as a coping mechanism as well. I had very loving and supportive parents, but there was definitely things that played out that made me doubt or feel confused in who I was, and that it had to be their way, or particularly with my mum her way, as opposed to really tapping into that inner guidance within myself as well. And one of my daughters in particular was amazing at pointing out the hypocrisy of what I was doing as a parent, of expecting them to do it, yet I wasn't living that. And I think that is one of the most important pieces, is not trying to control our kids through telling them what we think that they should be doing. It's actually role modeling that and demonstrating that. And they've actually shown, even just with physical well-being, that if there is one adult in a child's life that is role modeling, taking care of their body, physically working out, that as adults, they may not do it as a child, but as adults, they will actually take that on board, and they're 80% more likely to actually take better care of their health. And I think that's profound. And so a lot of mine, I have a philosophy that leaders go first. And if I'm going to lead my girls in a positive way, or be that role model, I have to be the one that implements that first. And so a lot of that was doing the inner work. I also realized that when I hated who I was being, or when I was full of criticism, that so much of that got sprayed outwardly at my girls through the anger, the resentment that I had at myself, yet my dysregulation was playing out with them and affecting my relationship with them. So again, by doing the inner work to love and value me, I could see very clearly that I showed up as a much better parent. And I think one of the other things that can really impact our relationship with our kids is our parenting ego, meaning that we attach our sense of self-worth or self-value to our children and to our children's behavior, to our children's achievements or non-achievements, and therefore we will be much more likely to try and attempt to control their behavior rather than understanding or seeking to understand what's actually happening for them and with them from that particular place as well, where if we have a thought, my gosh, I'm being a bad parent, we will try and control our children, as opposed to really hearing what's going on for them.
That's beautifully said, actually, and it's quite a skill to actually get it. I take it was a growing process for you. It wasn't perfect at first,
and it's still not. I just want to say that
you've got to feel your way. You've got to feel what's working and what could be working, and then you've got to get that feedback, right?
Yeah, 100%. And there was many times I didn't get it right, but I think one of the most beautiful things is our ability to repair afterwards, and to acknowledge and to let them know, hey, I'm not doing perfectly here, and I've had a hard day, or and that's not to excuse my behavior, but I would often let them know, hey, I'm having a bit of a tough day with myself. Just letting you know, anything that comes out of my mouth that is unlike love, just please ignore. Like, I would literally say that. I would give them the heads up, because again, I think that also humanizes us all and gives them permission as parents to to make mistakes and to know that they don't have to get it perfect, but acknowledging where we've messed up or where we've behaved in a way that wasn't in the way that we actually really wanted to, and acknowledging that and letting our kids know that. I still remember, even when one of my girls, she wasn't sure what she wanted to do with school, whether she wanted to finish up, and I was feeling like all this anxiety around it, and like was projecting that on her and going, you have to figure out like what you need to do, and then it's like, oh my gosh, Sally, like you didn't know what you wanted to do until you were 32. I did lots of jobs along the way, but there was nothing that I was really super passionate about until I found kinesiology. And it's like, oh my goodness, give this kid a rest. And so I just went and said to her, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, honey, like I know that you'll figure things out. I didn't figure things out until I was 32, so there's zero pressure. And next minute, she's landed herself a brilliant job with a wonderful law firm that literally called her in for an interview. She didn't even have to apply for it. Like, it was just wild how it all played out. And it's just, again, it's a perfect example of how when we let go of trying to control things from our own anxiety or our own fears, that our kids, they're so wise within themselves.
Yeah, it's true. And you gave them the tools when they were growing up, to be honest, to make the decision in the right way. They were good human beings, good people. And because you had done that, so they had chosen what was right for them. So that's obviously good standing from you, from a mum, doing the right thing, putting all the hard work, working on yourself, showing them as an example, as a parent, how to make decisions. And that's down to you, Sally. Well done for that.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting journey. And I realized, particularly, I think more when my eldest was probably about 11, I had, up until that point, I had tried parenting from that more authoritarian, controlling, like telling them what they needed to do. And it's not to say that our kids don't need our guidance and don't need boundaries. I'm certainly not saying that. But it was more the energy behind it of like, you'll do what I say, as opposed to hang on, what's going on for you, and really seeking to understand what's actually happening. And I really started to shift my parenting style into, particularly as I got to 14, 15, 16, and they would say, Mum, I want to go to this particular party, or I want to go here. And so I would be lovingly just bringing up these different, okay, so if this happens, what would you do in this circumstance? Or have you thought about, like, you haven't got your assessment done or your assignment done, when are you going to get that done? And so we would have this lovely conversation that was really building their own ability to be able to make their own decisions rather than me telling them what I thought that they should be doing. And I really feel that that's been very valuable for them over the years as well, in, again, leading them back to their own inner guidance, what's right for them, what feels good for them. And even, when it comes to different foods and things like that, I'm very aware of what causes inflammation. And at one point was trying to, very much hyper control what they were eating and all of those different things, as opposed to, hey, how are you feeling after you've eaten that? And just bringing awareness to those particular factors. And they may still choose to occasionally have a milkshake or something like that, and then suffer the consequences of that afterwards. And but again, they're aware and they're making those choices more consciously, which I think is a beautiful gift to give us all as humans. Nobody wants to be controlled. I think we all ultimately want our own freedom.
Of course. No, I totally get that. But I'm very curious in the fact that you went from do as I say, from let's have a discussion. So what changed? Because that didn't happen overnight. You maybe had seen that from somebody else that said, hey, why don't you try this, or what? But what flipped? Because that's two extremities, right? So what made you flip from one to the other of that conversation with the children?
I think the biggest thing was I could see it wasn't working. It was creating so much conflict, and I knew that there needed to be a different way. I've also applied the Byron Katie process. I don't know if you've heard of Byron Katie, but incredible, extraordinary woman that's done amazing work in the world. And she has a process where and this is the process that I use to question my thoughts and all of those different things. So a lot of the process was doing these turnarounds as well, which she also shares in her process. So basically it's like they should listen to me or they should respect me. And then doing a turnaround with that statement, you know, how do I feel? Who do I become when I believe that thought that they should respect me, they should listen to me? I feel angry. I feel, you know, like trying to exert my power over them. You know, there was all of this parenting ego that was kind of showing up at that particular time. And then how do I feel and who am I without the thought? I'm calmer, I'm more relaxed, I'm more open, I'm more in my heart center. And then the turnaround is I should listen to them, I should respect them. And it was like, oh, wow. And then the other one was I should listen to me and I should respect me. And that was another like, oh, right, got it. And so that was a real learning for me in those particular things as well. And just the same as, you know, they should love me, they should appreciate me, I should love them, I should appreciate them, I should love me, I should appreciate me. I did so many of those turnarounds, and there was so much gold in that for me of helping me to apply those principles, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course it does. I knew there was a reason, because I knew you didn't just wake up and just change. So something, it must have been some kind of transition.
Pain is a wonderful motivator, and I was highly motivated to have a very good relationship with my girls, and because of everything that I'd been through myself and what I was learning about myself, I certainly wanted to create a different way of being, or just a safety, certainly within the house, for them to express how they really felt and what they were experiencing and what they actually really needed.
Good. That sounds beautiful. So with all that said, with so much going on and your journey, I can totally see how you've now got to the stage with your business, being able to help so many people and do it in such a way where it's quite, I wouldn't say easy, but it's quite intuitive for you to help, because you've had to live a life in a certain way, your hardship, plus you've had to be prevalent in the way that, okay, I need to find myself and I need to put things in place and help my daughters. And you've gone through multiple burnouts, and with that experience, you've had to survive out of those burnouts. So you didn't have to go to a university to learn all of this. But this is from the University of Life.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much an applied life experience.
Exactly, which is always the best way. But unfortunately, it's not like a university you go away for 3 years. Unfortunately, you have to do it for 30. That sounds painful,
and ongoing.
Right? And it's still ongoing. Yeah, exactly. The university does not want to let you go. That's the thing. It just says, well, you still got more to learn. You may be on level 6, but you've got another 100 levels to go. So, yeah, it's painful. But this is why you've got a beautiful skill, being able to help so many people in such an intuitive way. And it's still a journey, because you still have negative days about yourself. It never goes. It never goes. You just learn to cope, right?
Yeah, it's recognizing it for what it is. And I think when I really understood a lot more about the difference between what I call like our ego survival mind and the heart and soul, it's really understanding that we could not have individuation as human beings without that ego. The ego is what gives us individuation, but it's also what gives us a sense of separation, which is why we can feel as an individual. But it gives us a sense of separation. It creates judgment. It creates criticism. It creates all of these different factors so that it can individuate itself. And I think the more that we can understand that and not necessarily like, and all of the thoughts of the inner critic are or were once pro-survival, meaning that they were helping us survive a particular situation in trying to make us be better in some particular way or change something about ourselves that wasn't being accepted by either our birth family or those around us. And I think the more that we can do that, the more self-compassion we can have in those moments where we are having a tougher day. And I certainly still don't get it all right. You know, I'm very much a work in progress, as I think we all are as humans. But the more that we can recognize those things, it means that we're not stuck in those patterns for a long period of time. And things that used to take me out for like 3 months, you know, like these days it's like a 5-minute process that I take myself through. So it's not that I never experience it, it's that I can be aware of it, because again, without awareness we can't change anything. We're not at choice, because we're just in the pattern and it's happening. The moment we become aware, and I say that to all of my clients and people I work with, it's like awareness is 90%, because the second you become aware, now you're at a choice point. Now you can either choose to change it or let it play out, whatever it is, but you're at a choice point, which is really beautiful. And with that, then with the right tools and strategies, we can navigate and move back into our heart, our soul, a place of love, whatever people want to call that, within ourselves, much faster, much quicker, and much easier, which means we get to spend more time in joy, in love, in excitement, in enthusiasm of life. So
that sounds wonderful. Now, within your business, how do you help people? Do you help people from the point of view as one-to-one, in groups, corporate, or all of the above?
All of the above, except for corporate. I work with corporate people, but individually, so I don't necessarily go into businesses from that perspective, but I have worked with many corporate people in high-level management or different roles, different positions, particularly business owners and particularly self-employed business owners, because they tend to carry a lot of weight within themselves as well, in smaller businesses in particular. And I work one-to-one, and I also have a group program as well, which is my Thrive program. So that's the 12-week program to overcome burnout. But a lot of my favorite work is really the one-to-one, where we can dive really deep into really helping somebody understand themselves, teach the tools, the strategies to be able to navigate perhaps the challenges that they're experiencing, and to have greater, I don't like to use the word balance, because I feel like balance is such a myth, basically. But bringing back in, different aspects that enhance their life experience as well, I think is really, really important. And helping them heal mentally and emotionally, physically, and coming back into connection with themselves. And
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, how can people get in touch with you if they need your support and your help?
Absolutely. So the best way would be through my website, where I've got a contact form on there, which is abundantheartcoaching.com. And I've also got 1,000 different, probably not 1,000, but I have a lot of resources on Linktree/Sal Holden, SAL Holden. That's the best way that people can get in touch, or just if there's something that has resonated with the listeners today, they can go to that Linktree and download any of the resources there that maybe speak to them as well. So.
And with that said, listeners, what I'll do, I'll put the links down below, as I always do. As you can see, she's led a journey which has been arduous and difficult. And the reason why she's able to do things in an amazing way that she does, because she's gone, as we said, to the University of Life. Trust me, you can go to University of UK or Australia, or it's not the same. Being burnt in real time is the way to help other people, because you can be empathetic. You understand from their point of view because you've actually lived it. So if she resonates with you, it makes sense just to make that contact, just contact her as quickly as possible, because you just never know. You never know. It could change your life. All it is a conversation. That's all it is. And with that said, Sally, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Eli. It's been an absolute pleasure being on here with you today. I've loved our conversation, and a huge thank you to all the listeners as well. So,
thank you, Sally. And and everything else wonderful. And sayonara, everyone.